Hey everyone, it's Ed from Six String Supplies. Welcome back. Today I'm going to show you the quarter blend Strat wiring mod where the blend control only works in the bridge position. This setup is known as the quarter blend Strat wiring mod, and it's already my favourite setup now, having watched Jay's video about it. I can't do it justice myself, but I'll put a link to Jay's video below and above on the screen now, who explains it and demos it absolutely superbly. But I'll tell you why I love it. My favourite wiring before this is the blender mod. We did a video on it a while ago. It's a common, well-loved setup. You get your master volume, your master tone, and the blend control to blend the neck pickup in at will. Essentially, this gives you 7 switching options in effect. The 5-way switch positions we all know and love, the ones we are familiar with, as well as the ability to have neck and bridge on together, as well as all 3 pickups on together. Here's the thing, the neck and bridge on together, when we have the switch all the way back in position 1, is an absolutely awesome tone. It's quite unique. It gives you that nice Tele style quack, and it's a really good addition to the switching arsenal, so to speak. Whilst having all 3 pickups on together seems appealing at first, it's actually really underwhelming, so much so that I never use it. The next issue is if you decide to avoid this position with all 3 pickups on, and you have the neck blended in when in position 1, if you then switch to position 2, now let's face it, position 2 on a standard Strat is a very popular position, having the middle and bridge, on together. You then have to unblend the neck pickup to remove it. So this setup is wired in a way so that the blend control only works in the bridge position. So what this does is it gives you the ability to have the neck and bridge on together. But then if you do want to quickly change to position 2, you're not having to faff around with your controls to unblend the neck to get to the standard position 2, which is, like I say, a very popular position. So go and watch Jay's video. Me demoing the mod will not do it justice at all. It will probably put you off. I'm just going to show you how to wire it. It's what we do. As usual, we'll give a quick overview of the components, explain what we need, and we'll go through the process step by step with the mini diagrams on screen to guide you through it. So I've already put all the components into a loaded pick guard with my pickups. I'll just quickly give you an overview of what's what. So we've got a standard 250k pot for volume, a standard 250k pot for tone. We've obviously got our 3 single coil pickups. I'm using a 0.047 capacitor. You can use whatever value you want. That's just what I tend to go for. I'm going to be using some pushback cloth wire. All seems fairly standard, but there are 2 components that stand out and are a little bit non-standard, so to speak. So our second tone control here is actually going to be a blend control, obviously. So for that, we're going to be using you need to use a no-load tone pot or a specialist blender pot. They're essentially the same thing. We did a video last year showing you how to convert a standard CTS pot, or any pot really, into a blender pot. It involves cutting the track. So I'll show you, go and watch that video if you want to know how to do that, or we do sell these individually. I'll put a link on the screen now. The other component that's a bit non-standard is this 5-way switch here. It's a 2-pole 5-way switch. So if I can just zoom in actually. It's a 5 switching position switch, but as you can see, it's got 2 poles here. So it allows you to do, well, various different things. You can have different pickup combinations, or you can do coil splitting, for example. We sell these online. We are actually an official dealer for these 2-pole 5-way switches. A link there as well down below for you. Right, with no further ado, let's start wiring the circuit. Oh, by the way, for those that are interested, I've got a new soldering system here. JBC, I've forgotten the model name. It's probably written on that. Nope, JBC. Along with this insanely good fume extractor. That won't be on for the video because it's quite loud. But yeah, really recommend the JBC. So we'll start off with some grounding. I've already done it, but go ahead and ground the lug on the volume pot to the pot casing. You can either bend it back like I have here. Let me zoom in. or you can use a jumper wire between the two and just connecting it to ground that way. The only other thing, so as you can see, I'm using one of these full pickguard sized shielding plates. So the pots are grounded together by this, so I'm not going to ground them together. If you are simply relying on the foil on the inside, on the underside of the pickguard to ground your pots together, I would strongly recommend grounding the pots together, either using cloth wire or tinder copper. I've put the photos on the screen now as an example, because the teeth washers, the lock washers, they can actually not eat literally, but they can scratch away the foil fairly quickly. You'll be amazed at how quickly it can happen. So I would strongly recommend making sure your pots are grounded together if you're not using a metal plate like this. I'll start off with the capacitor. You'll notice here on both the tone pot and the blender pot, I've snipped off the first lug here, the outer lugs on both of them. They're not going to be used. If anything, they'll just get in the way. So out of habit, I mean, it's completely optional, of course, but out of habit, I tend to remove them. So our tone cap in this circuit, we're connecting one end of it to the third lug here, and then we're going to put the other end to ground. Like so. Now we'll move on to the switch. So this is a 2-pole super switch, 5-way. So you can see here it's got the 5 lugs times 2 effectively. So there's 5 lugs per pole and there's 2 poles. These 2 lugs here on the lower side, they are the common lugs, which means they are always connected irrespective of which other lug is being selected in the circuit. So if this one is selected, for example, hang on, where is it? It's in that position. So if this lug here is connected to the wheel there, then it's always connected to the common. So common is always on, and it's the same on the other side. So position, was it position 2? Yeah. Position 2 on both poles is connected to its respective common lug. So what we need to do, we need to connect both common lugs together. So I'm just going to use a length of cloth wire just to jump across there. But we also need to connect one of the common lugs, it doesn't matter which one, to our volume input. So I'm going to put another cloth wire in that lug there, and I'm going to solder them all together. Ideally you want to bend them round and make a mechanical connection. So just bend them round so they're touching both sides of the solder lug. The other end of that cloth wire, like I say, needs to go to the volume input. That's the first one here, nearest to the switch. Push the cloth back. And at the same time, we need to solder a jumper wire between the volume input straight across to the output, which is the middle lug of the tone control, directly opposite. Actually, this is where tape can be your friend. I just like to put a longer length there, run it across so it sits on top of the volume pot, tape it in place. Put your soldering iron behind, let it heat up, flow in the solder from the other side. Snip this wire to length, just behind the lug there. And then we can solder that connection as well. essentially what we've got here working so far is a switch. The two common lugs are connected obviously, because then the output from the switch, depending on what we select on top, doesn't matter what you're doing on top, if you're coil splitting or whatever pickup is being selected, the signal runs from the common lugs straight across into the volume control. That's our volume input, and now we've got a working tone control. So at the moment we've got a switch, master volume and a master tone. Now we're going to finish off the switch connections, make a few connections on the switch, and we're going to wire up our blend control. So as a point of reference going forward on the switch, I'm going to label these lugs A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are the A's, 1 to 5, these are the B's, 1 to 5. The common lugs, the C's, either side, we've already dealt with, so we won't be referring to those going forward. So first off, we're going to connect both poles together essentially in that respect. So we're going to solder wire between A4 going across to B2 and then jumping across to B3. So A4, which is this one here, going across to B2, and then we're going to extend it to the one directly next to it, which is B3. So I'll start off, we'll do one at a time. I've started off on A4. I've created a hook really and bent the wire through and back around onto the lug, so it's touching both sides. Push the cloth back down when it's cool. So I think what I'm going to do actually, yeah, I'm going to snip the cloth wire and I'm going to push the cloth right back, feed it up through that lug, B2, and jump it across to B3. So I'm going to cut it there. Push the cloth as far back as you can. I'm going to bend him across to B2. So you can see what I've done there. Bend it up and through B2, and it's the end of the wire is jumping across to B3. Moving on to the blend control, which is the whole point of the circuit. Now look, it's not essential, but I'm using two different coloured wires here. I've got yellow and black. And what I've done, if that focuses, I've just bent a little hook like so, which gives us a nice mechanical connection because the wire is touching both sides of the lug, but it also makes it nice and easy to remove should you decide for any future wiring mods. So I'm putting the black. There's no reason for black, you can use any colour you want. I'm just using two, like I say, to make it easier to differentiate. So the middle lug here is our output of the blender. And actually when we connect the other end of it to the switch, it's going to where our bridge pickup is going, which is how we get the blend control only working in the bridge position. So I've got black on the middle and I've got yellow on the left. And we're just going to solder those in place. Push the cloth back down. Time to connect the blend control to the switch. So our yellow wire from the blend is going to B5, which is actually this one, is the nearest one. And we need to jump it across from B5 to B4 as well. So we'll do what we did on the previous connection actually. We'll cut the cloth wire to length. So create that little hook, as you can see, on the end of the wire, and we're going to push that into B4. Just like that, you see, and then we'll solder both of them into place. black wire from the blend coming from the middle, the output lug of the blend pot, is going to B1, which is this one right here. And if you look at our diagram on the screen, but we'll put it, obviously this is going to be more pertinent when we connect our pickups. B1 is actually connected to A1, which is where our bridge pickup is going. It's just one thing about mechanical connections, it's always advisable to do. Can be a bit of a faff, does take more time, but I wouldn't overly stress out about it. You can take shortcuts. We'll just solder that in place. That's pretty much the main circuit done. Now we're going to hook up the pickups whilst we're still out of the guitar, and then we'll put everything into my Strat and we'll go through some testing and make the final connections. For the pickups, ground all three pickups to the back of the volume pot, just as you would in a standard Stratocaster. Our neck pickup is going to B4 or B5, it doesn't matter which one, whichever one you find easiest. Middle pickup to B3. And our bridge pickup needs to go to B1 and B2, so you can put it through either which one you prefer, or whichever you prefer, I should say, and then you can bend it round just like we have on the other side of the switch into a staple and connect both lugs together. So I'm going in through A2. Perfect, let's put this in my Strat. Just 3 connections to make before we can actually play the thing. So this yellow wire here on the left is our jack socket. Let me zoom in. It's the signal from the jack socket, it goes to the middle, the output of the volume control. This black wire here directly next to it is the jack socket ground wire. And this third one here, this black wire, is the main ground, the string ground coming from the tremolo claw. So I'll put a photo on the screen now. Basically, you'll see on your tremolo claw, there should be anyway, a little latch where you can kind of jam the wire into and solder it into place. And then you feed that wire through the hole, through into the main cavity, and you solder that onto the volume pot, and that is the main ground. That's about it. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna screw everything down and just do some testing before we have a little play. So before you put everything back together and you put your strings back on, it's always a good idea to test that everything's working as it should. So one way to do that is something known as the Polepiece Tap Test. You need something metallic like a screwdriver, or preferably something blunt, just to tap the pole pieces as we select through each position, just to check everything's working. So I'm going to start off here with the switch all the way forward in position 5, so this should give us neck pickup only, and then no noise from the other 2 pickups, so that's working fine. Just test the volume control while I'm here. That's working nicely, and the tone control. Perfect. So volume and tone are working. Moving into position 4, this should be neck and middle only. Working nicely. Middle obviously should just be the middle pickup only. Position 2 should be middle and bridge. And position 1 should be bridge pickup only. So that's all working as intended. Now this is where the blend control comes into its own. So with the blend control fully open, it will be just the bridge pickup. Essentially because it's a no load tone pot, even though the neck pickup is connected to the blend control, when it's all the way open in 10, it's taken out the circuit. But as we start to dial this back down, you can hear the neck pickup gradually being blended in. And that gives you neck and bridge and nothing in the middle, which is the whole point of the mod. Where this mod really comes into its own and is the beauty of it is when you push the switch back into position 2. So on a typical Strat, this would give you the middle and bridge together. On a normal blend wiring, it would also have the neck still blended in because you've got the blend fully closed, so the neck's in the circuit. But the beauty of this setup is that the blend control only works in the bridge position here, you see. There's the neck, push it forward one into position 2, the neck's blended out.